Welcome back to the show. We're joined by United fan and journalist Andy Mitten, and alongside Andy is City fan Steve Price. Now let's talk about handbags, balloons on sticks, Carlos Tevez and Gary Neville. Go on, you know the inside story. Tell it us.
I think it's funny what he did. Far too frequently people are saying footballers are boring and they only talk in cliches and why don't they show their true feelings and emotions. That's what he did, and so did Gary Neville. It's a bit of pantomime. And if I was Carlos Tevez, I would probably do exactly what he did. And if I was Gary Neville, I would also do the same. Now, I know I'm supposed to be sensible and say, oh, you shan't do that, it's inciting trouble. I don't think it is inciting trouble. I think there's two sides to the story as to why Tevez left Old Trafford. I thought he was an excellent player, especially in the European Cup final in Moscow. I thought he was man of the match for a lot of United fans. And I would have liked to have seen him stay, but Manchester United's financial circumstances would dictate otherwise. But that's not a black and white. There's lots of grey little areas there. And Gary being Gary, he's come out and he's told the United line, the Ferguson line, and I can understand why he's done that. And in Spain they call it morbo, feeling, edge. And if you're not going to have that in a derby match, then when can you have it? It's a good thing. I hope there's more of it on Wednesday.
Do you know what, though, Ian? We're journalists, so we'll ask Steve's view on this in a minute, but when you work in the media, we have this double response to this where we go, oh, it's absolutely... We love it, the fact there's a bit of edge, and then go, oh, it could cause absolute ructions. And so all the fans who were going to go perfectly placidly on their way to the game are suddenly all going to turn into raving loonies because Carlos Tevez has a pop at Gary Neville.
Like Andy says, I think it's fantastic. In terms of build-up for the game, I mean, I don't know what you think, sort of, as a City fan of Tevez's comments, but personally, I just think that the whole sort of atmosphere ahead of a derby, it needs a bit of this just every now and then to mix it up.
I totally agree. I think it's great. You know, Gary Neville is fast becoming a great source of entertainment for us City fans. It's fantastic. I mean, it's part of what we're looking forward to on Wednesday, you know. What
is interesting is Gary Neville is quoted all the time now, and all these comments come from a tiny column he does for the Times of Malta. He loves Malta and he always goes over there, and he does a column every week. Now, all the journalists have clocked onto this, so they steal his quotes every week and they blow them up. So Gary's doing what he thinks right. He's writing a decent column every week. United fans like to read it in Malta, where there's a lot of United supporters. And the journalists are getting his quotes, and they're often spinning them and they're twisting them slightly out of context. This Times of Malta has had more publicity around the world than a tiny island newspaper would ever have. But I think there's a line between celebrating, showing emotion, showing passion, having an edge. I hope that Old Trafford is rocking. I hope the City fans, 9,000 of them, make an absolute din, and United fans are even louder. But if a City player scores and comes up and celebrates rather enthusiastically, I don't think I'll throw a lighter at his head. You know, you've got to be a bit dim to react like that. And if people don't behave, if people do react by throwing things, there's just going to be consequences for the club that they support. So it's a no-brainer.
Well, it looks a bit of a no-brainer to me, but you do get that thing, don't you, where, oh, this is absolutely terrible. We sort of love it as well, in the journalistic sense. So, in terms of Wednesday, then, we'll finish off with Wednesday, because all the ground we want to cover as well. Are we expecting it to be rocking? Because I know 30 years ago, the place would have been jumping, but football has become a much more placid arena than it ever used to be.
Yeah. I think most Premiership grounds are a lot more calmer than they used to be, and we've often bemoaned the lack of atmosphere, and the League Cup has not been short of critics either, and we're talking about a game here in the League Cup. The sponsors would be absolutely delighted. United are delighted because they wouldn't have sold the game out, and now it's going to be a sellout. And it's a big, big match. I think the television audience for the first leg was 9 million, which was more than any FA Cup tie last year on terrestrial television. I know the return leg's going to be on satellite television. Brilliant. I'm glad we're playing City in the semi-final. We beat them well, and then hopefully it will be a highlight in a season which has had many low points as well.
One thing that has been said in the build-up was by Roberto Mancini when he said that he doesn't expect there to be trouble between the fans. I don't know whether he's being naive or not, but that's what he thinks, compared to the atmosphere that he had when he was back in Italy. Take a look at this.
In England, it's beautiful because the family, the supporters go to stadium to watch a game, to watch a match, only for this. This is important. I don't think, because in England the people are very serious.
Do you think that he's been naive then?
Well, Who's to say? Who's to say? I think we're all fairly agreed on the fact that the handbags between Neville and Tevez have no link to it. But, you know, we're just going to have to wait till Wednesday to see. The police certainly think they've got it covered. And I hope that they will, to be honest.
He's played in Italy. He was the king of Genoa, that man. He's played in the Genoa derby for Sampdoria. He's played in the Milan derby, the Rome derby. I've been lucky enough to go to those matches. The atmosphere for that Rome derby in Olimpico is probably 3 or 4 times more intense than any Manchester derby I have ever seen. So they have this view of the English as being all like, you know, very gentlemanly and applauding fair play in the Corinthian spirit. And clearly it's not like that. Now, he's got to be responsible and play everything down. But I hope the ground is rocking. And it was for the derby earlier on in the season, but now you've got 6,000 more City fans. Hopefully everyone will behave. And I think it's great. It's great for Manchester. It's great for the two clubs.
Steve, let me ask you a question. We expect to hear from Fergie. We expect to hear from Mancini. A little bit of bubble between Tevez and Neville doesn't go amiss either. But have we got a bit of a loose cannon in our chief executive at Manchester City? Because Gary Cook was giving it large again in New York about what City are going to achieve. Well,
yes, I think we do. And not for the first time either. I think we're all aware of what Gary Cook has been saying. You know, City have never been short of excitement. What we've got now is excitement coupled with optimism and, dare I say, even potential success. I don't think, and I think a lot of the City fans don't think now is the time to start bragging, whichever side of the Atlantic you're on. You know, maybe we are on for a ride. Maybe the ride will last 15, 20 years and will surpass the achievements of United, perhaps even Liverpool. But certainly right now, whether, you know, this semi-final aside, right now isn't the time to start bragging. City are all about potential. We're still a team in progress, etc. And I don't think his comments really sound out what the City fans as a whole are thinking right now.
Why do you think he feels the need to say these things?
I can't answer that, I'm afraid.
Because he's a clown. Like Steve's saying that Gary Neville gives City fans plenty of ammunition. Gary Cook is just a beautiful present for United fans because he says things like Milan have bottled it. You know, those European minnows, AC Milan, have bottled it against Manchester City, who haven't won a trophy for 30,
But Andy, you've been there,
years.
done it and seen it journalistically.
Yeah.
With Gary Cook's background in American business, where they tend to be very, very measured and very professional in how they deal with the media, this isn't his first Bigfoot impression, is it? Because we had the Mark Hughes. That press conference wasn't particularly well handled. And my gut reaction to this was, well, yeah, shout the odds once you've actually got the silverware in the cabinet. But at the moment, it just seemed to me a little bit, I don't know, over the top.
Who's he helping by saying this? I mean, I know people who know Gary Cook and I know people who respect him a lot, and he's looked after a business in America, the Air Jordan brand, which is far bigger than the turnover of Manchester United and Manchester City combined. He's not stupid. But if he's going to talk in one way in America, he's not in America now, he's in Manchester. He's the main man at Manchester City Football Club. And if he's saying things like, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, action speaks louder than words, he's only ever setting himself up for a fall. But keep on doing it, Mr. Cook, if you're watching, because we've got enough problems with the Glazers at Manchester United, but you keep making us smile.
So, when you saw that, what was your gut instinct? Again, I'm looking at it from someone who's a bit older than you, and I've got used to a way that certain chief executives are expected to behave, and it just seemed a little bit full on for a typical chief executive, or has that world changed?
Yeah, it was cringeworthy again, wasn't it? And he has this habit of doing these things. Like someone say, like David Gill at United, do you expect him to do the same? No, you wouldn't, would you? So I don't see it. Was the reason I asked the question. I don't see why he feels the need to say it. You know, even if you had, you know, City do go on and dominate football for 10 years, you still don't have to say it. Like you say, actions speak louder than words. If you're winning trophies on the field, you don't have to say to people that this is what you're going to do and that's what you're going to do, because you're just doing it, aren't you?
So is it unanimous then that maybe Gary Cook could have handled that situation a little bit better?
I think so. I'm not even entirely sure what he's doing in New York, affiliating a bar to our supporters club anyway, to begin with. Never mind the comments he's come out with while he's there. So perhaps this is one of the side effects of the new fame and glory that we seem to be on the path to. like our neighbours have experienced.
Well, Steve, as Andy and Ian will confirm, in the world of journalism, what that trip to New York is normally referred to is a jolly.
Well, I can't understand, because all City's fans live within earshot of Albert Square. They're all Mancunians. Why is City opening a bar in New York? I just can't understand it. It's the Manchester club. They were singing "This is our city." Cockneys go back home. The New Order on the bags in the City souvenir shop, and the lads in New Order are not happy about that, by the way, because there's more United fans in that group.
More football talk to come, but I think the general message, Gary Cook, is put a sock in it in the short term, mate. Coming up more on Wednesday night's clash, a quick look at another big North West clash taking place between Bolton and Burnley, and that's tomorrow.